And just a quick reminder before our next programme here on Jackpot Button Lewis 2, as later on this evening on Jackpot Button Lewis 1, there's an exclusive half-an-hour documentary looking back on the incredible, remarkable and also quite dramatic journey for the current two-time European Women's Football Championship champions, that being the Lionesses of the England Women's National Football Team. From the unexpected defeat in the first group stage match against France, to the three disbelieving comebacks against Sweden and beating them on the penalty shootout in the quarter-finals, to the last-minute win against Italy in the semi-finals, and then a rematch of the Women's World Cup final against the Women's World Champions of Spain, with exclusive interviews from all-important players such as Chloe Kelly, Michelle Adjemang, who went on to become the player of the tournament, Lucy Bronze, Captain Leah Williamson, and of course the manager herself of Serena Wiegmann. That's Lionesses, history makers, from later on this evening after the news and weather on Jackpot Button Lewis 1 from 10:40 p.m. You're watching Jackpot Button Lewis 2. Now Leighton and Bild, we now head into the deep forest areas of the circuit of Hockenheim in Germany for round 9 of the Reimagined 1995 F1 season, with extended highlights of the 1995 German Grand Prix, introduced by Jack Wright with live race commentary from Murray Walker in Grand Prix Formula 1. As the second half of this year's Reimagined 1995 Formula 1 season finally gets underway, welcome to the German Grand Prix, which is about to happen here from the circuit of Hockenheim. Now, the problems that the drivers face with this track is just how to set the car up for the race. It's got long straights where the cars can top over 200 miles an hour. And that calls for a low downforce wing setup for minimum drag and maximum speed. But it also has very tight first gear chicanes from around the circuit, and they call for a high downforce setup to give them the grip they need in those corners. But this was emphatically not the case last year in 1994. Drama seemed to follow drama, as Michael Schumacher, who started from 4th place on the grid, eventually retired from the race, but after the 45 laps, it was won from pole position by Austrian Gerhard Berger for Ferrari. And he took his first victory for the Ferrari team since the 1990 Spanish Grand Prix, some 59 races previously. And in a race of high tradition, including 11 retirements on the opening lap, only 8 cars managed to finish the 45-lap race distance, with the Frenchman drivers of Olivier Panis and Eric Bernard for the Ligier Renault team. They managed to take a 2-3 finish for the first time in their Formula 1 careers. And still following from a potential race ban that was given to him in the last race at Silverstone, Gerhard Berger is hoping for a repeat performance in front of the German crowd. But following a sensational drive from the British driver of Johnny Herbert for the Benetton Renault team from a few weeks ago back at Silverstone in Great Britain, he is hoping that his German teammate can also follow suit of Michael Schumacher, as he's yet to win his home Grand Prix in front of his home crowd, just like his teammate Johnny did once again from a few weeks before. And even though there were only 2 British drivers that got onto the winning podium after the race, it was still a very impressive achievement from the Brazilian Rubens Barrichello, as he finally took his first podium finish, finishing 3rd, and the best result currently for the Total Jordan Peugeot Grand Prix Formula 1 team. So, once again, since he retired from last year's Grand Prix here at Hockenheim, Michael Schumacher, and even though he's just a narrow 10 points behind David Coulthard for the Williams Renault team currently in the Drivers' Championship, he only needs to win this race this afternoon and he'll be right back in it to hopefully challenge him as the FIA Formula 1 World Championship of 1995 Reimagined gets back underway after a few months' break. Well, it's been a while, but it's been definitely worth the wait. And with that, a very good evening, everybody. My name is Jack Wright, and welcome to another edition of my World Motorsport playthrough series, that being of Grand Prix Formula 1. And of course, once again, to extended race highlights of round 9 of the reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix from the circuit of Hockenheim in Germany. And before we get underway with this edition of course, my playthrough series, I would just like to once again thoroughly apologise for the delay in the upload of this particular episode. It's down to a load of other projects that have been happening outside of the Jackpot Button Lewis Sports Productions universe. And also there's been a load of other things going on in my personal life, which I'll obviously won't be, of course, mentioning as of currently when we're doing this right now. And with also that being said, we can also tell you and can confirm that also that from later on, as of recording this now, that we will also be able to bring you coverage shortly after, from later on this week, of the next round of the championship, and that being we can already clarify that as being the 1995 Marlboro Hungarian Grand Prix from the Hungaroring in Budapest. But we'll have more information on the next round of the championship later on in the programme. But also we would just like to say that it's great once again to be back. It's been a while since I've been doing another edition of this, but it's nice to be back, and even though that it is, of all the days to record this, it is also the start of a very warm heat wave also here in the United Kingdom. Not just as the same, of course, from over 30 years ago where we depict this series, but there's been a lot of warm weather, and if you can hear any background noise from outside, is because we've got the windows open in our studio because of how extremely hot and humid it's been over the last few days. As much as we could have had air conditioning in here, we sadly can't do that when we show highlights of the race, which we'll be getting on very, very shortly. But last time that we were with you from just a few weeks ago was an unbelievable result for the British driver of Johnny Herbert, winning his home Grand Prix of the year, and that being the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and an amazing final few laps battle between him and also current championship leader of David Coulthard for Williams. It still blows my mind that even though he's now won the most races so far, as of we've already now reached the halfway point of this year's championship, and starting the second half of this reimagined season, he has had the most race victories. And we can also clarify this with our races of race winners, of 1995 so far in my notepad here. And we also got on your screen right now that of all the drivers to have won the most races so far in the first half of this reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship season is once again Scotsman for Williams-Renault, that being of David Coulthard, as he has won the races currently so far in the season opener in, of course, at Interlagos in Brazil, and also at the Monaco Grand Prix in Monte Carlo, and also a back-to-back victory also as well at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada. And shortly after him, from having two race victories alongside his German teammate, that being Johnny Herbert, having wins at Argentina and also Great Britain. And for Michael Schumacher currently, he's also won the Spanish Grand Prix at Catalonia. My apologies there if I actually did get that wrong there. Of course, David Coulthard won the Monaco Grand Prix, and Michael Schumacher winning the Spanish Grand Prix at Catalonia and Barcelona. And once again also that thrilling race end to, of course, in France at Manicourt as well. And also, as of currently, Damon Hill is the only driver to have only won once so far, as his fellow British teammate David Coulthard for Williams-Renault, who also won the first wet weather race of the championship, and that being at Imola in San Marino. So it's been very interesting among, of course, all of the current winners of this first half of this particular reimagined season have all been wins from both of the drivers of the teams of once again Benetton Renault and also Williams Renault. And also, with that being said, also while we are on the topic of that, let's quickly get to the current drivers and constructors championship tables thus far. And even after that impressive race victory on at the home Grand Prix for himself at Silverstone in Great Britain, Johnny Herbert, that has made not just all the difference in the Drivers' Championship, but when we get to the Constructors, it actually will make all the difference. But as we've said already, we can clarify that David Coulthard is still currently leading the Drivers' Championship by only 10 points behind Michael Schumacher, and he has currently got 28 points to 38 for David Coulthard. And then Johnny Herbert moves up and just currently is in third place, only just with 4 points ahead of Mark Blundell for the Marlboro McLaren Mercedes team in fourth place with 22 points. Rubens Barrichello, following his impressive podium finish that he did from last time out at the British Grand Prix, moves up to fifth place with 18 points, and he's just 2 points ahead of Damon Hill, who is in sixth place with 16 points. Seventh is Gerhard Berger with 12 points, along with his Frenchman teammate just below him, 1 point behind with 11 points in eighth. And then Jean-Christophe Bouillon still with, of course, yet to have scored as of recently in the last few races, is still in ninth place. And as well as that, Carl Wendlinger, who is have been confirmed here that as he's still recovering from his head injury assessment that was picked up at the Monaco Grand Prix from last year in 1994, there is talks that he will hopefully try and make it towards the end of this season. So in some particular races, but we'll have more on that as it develops. So that's all, of course, to clarify on that current situation. So with that being said, we can also clarify that currently Benetton Renault have now managed to just eke out a narrow 4-point lead in the Constructors' Championship with 51 points to 48. McLaren Mercedes maintain third place with 32 points. Ferrari are still in fourth with 23, but still hot on their heels are Jordan Peugeot in fifth with 18 points. And we're hoping to see that. I'm sure that especially with they've had a little bit of a run of good fortune in the last few races, scoring consistently points wise, but especially with that all-important podium finish in third there for Rubens Barrichello in the last race. I think that could make all the difference for the team going forward, and they could possibly, if they can get a few more decent of course race results over the next of course half of this Reimagined season, they should fancy their chances to actually try and overtake McLaren in third place. But of course that would is all still to of course unfold in the next of course few races of this championship. And Sauber Ford are still behind in just by 8 points behind Jordan, with in 6th place with 10 points, and still in 7th, 8th and 9th are Tyrrell Yamaha with 4 points, Lee J Mugen Honda with 3 points, and still in 9th place with only 2 points are Footwork Hearts. Well, there you go, everybody. That is, of course, to clarify, and I know that we didn't actually say that, of course, at the end of, or just before the start of the programme, but following that amazing result there for Johnny Herbert for the Benetton Renault team, David Coulthard had a brilliant battle, of course, in the last few laps of that particular race in the final, of course, quarter of the race, and it may not have been the closest finish like to what we had in Spain, but it was quite unbelievable that even Mark Blundell tried to unlap himself on the last few laps of the race as well, and it was just absolutely crazy, just some of the things that happened during the race, and not to mention multiple, of course, unsportsmanlike behaviour warnings with the black and white diagonal flag also being issued by the marshals. They were used quite a lot from last time out at the, of course, Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. Anyway, with that being said, also, before we get underway with extended race highlights of this afternoon's, of course, German Grand Prix, we can also now quickly confirm that what happened during qualifying, and it's quite amazing, unbelievably, for a second time in this series that we are now going back to join, of course, the German driver, that being, of course, Michael Schumacher for Benetton Renault, and even though, like I said already, he is currently second in the Drivers' Championship at the moment, this is, of course, the home race for Michael this afternoon, and, of course, of this particular week, and we are broadcasting this part of the championship. And we can confirm that we are going to be following him for this Grand Prix, and we've managed to get him qualified on the very same position that he qualified over 30 years ago from the race that happened from just a few weeks ago as of recording this. We tried to keep to the schedule as close as possible, but it's been proved quite difficult following other things that have been happening outside of this series and in, once again, the Jackpot Button Lewis Sport universe, Productions universe. And but we can also, before we can get to what happened, well, we haven't got anything much about qualifying here, but we do know that, unbelievably, Damon Hill in his Williams Renault managed to qualify fastest, and he got pole position with a time of 1 minute 44.385 hundredths of a second. And also the weather conditions, also the weather report was 28 degrees Celsius, which is 82 degrees in Fahrenheit. And very similar, of course, weather to what we've had at the moment, even though at the time of broadcasting this on our weather app, it's currently a very quite warm at 22 degrees as of currently. I mean, I've never seen it be so hot and sticky at this time of night of when we are broadcasting this, of course, edition of Grand Prix Formula 1 to all of you. But we can go straight on to a few driver changes that have actually been happening as of this race race weekend. And we do know that sadly that the Italian driver of Pierluigi Martini, of course driving for the Minardi team with the sponsor of Dorlimo, he is set to of course have his final race as of this of course afternoon, and as of this week of with the this particular race weekend. And we don't know if it is going to be possibly his last one, then considering retirement or going into other sports. Of course, other championships in the world of motorsport. But we do know that from next time out at the Hungarian Grand Prix, he's going to be replaced by the Portuguese driver, and then a former driver who drove for Lotus from last year in 1994, of Pedro Lamy. And we're going to be seeing him take to the circuit, and of course and replace Pierluigi there from the next race onwards. And also, as well as that, another fellow Italian driver that also is going to be replacing Bertrand Gachot at the Frenchman, of course, for the Pacific Grand Prix team, is of Giovanni Lavaggi, and he also is going to be making his debut also as of this particular race weekend. And we also, if I can actually quickly find out a little bit more about him, there's actually a lot to actually find out a bit more about of his particular career, coming from Augusta in Italy. And we do know that this is actually his debut in Formula 1. We do know that initially it does say here, even though he is described as a nobleman in background of his family, interesting to know, sadly he could not count on his personal financial resources, and therefore started racing at only the age of 26 years old. And nevertheless, he has managed to reach into the top class of motorsport by once again making his debut in Formula 1. And we do know that initially his racing career, that going through to go through into the Italian Formula 3 Championship, he also has done Group C sport car racing, and he has also took part also for the Porsche Crema team in the 1993 Interserie, and being the champion from all those years ago. It goes back into the early 70s. Actually, that particular race series of GT racing, and he managed to win 6 of the season's total races of 12, and taking 4 podium finishes. And he is also expected to take part in the Daytona USA, of course, sorry, the Rolex 24 at Daytona, I was going to say there, from earlier on this year, which did actually happen unbelievably earlier on this year on the 4th and 5th of February, and he managed to win that, driving 9 hours in a team of 4 drivers. And then he's also managed to win twice as well in the FIA Sports Car Championship, as well as to Formula 1 here, also inaugurated by the FIA, of course, organisation, including the 1,000 kilometres of Monza, where he also drove 5 of the races, 6 hours, and took 5 more podium finishes and 2 pole positions also in that very same championship. So even though that he was also a test driver for the March team during 1992, he did test the Pacific PR02 twice before his first race for the British team, once at Silverstone and also at Snetterton. He was a rookie at the time, but also for him, unbelievably, now being at the age of 35 years old, he's also the oldest driver to have competed so far in this year's championship. But therefore he had to fight against the scepticism of the F1 media. But we do know that, of course, it's being deemed quite unreliable, the vehicle, of course, the machine, and they have not been as successful as they would have liked to have been, even though they are actually the, of course, a predecessor or successor team to Lotus that folded at the end of the 1993 season. So that's an interesting fact to tell you all about that, if you did not know that already. But I think also, to my knowledge here as well, if I can just quickly check on my phone here, Yes, there we go. I'm going to also just quickly say here the course length is unbelievably 6.23 kilometres, which is 4.264 miles, and is the longest circuit so far on the calendar, and it is got a full lap race distance of 45 laps. So it may be the, you could say, the shortest lap distance so far of all the races in this particular reimagined Formula 1 championship, but we do know that, of course, especially this track is well known for being, of course, as you know, it's got long straights where the cars can top over 200 miles an hour down the, of course, the long winding straights, but it also happens to have very tight first gear chicanes, and we do know that especially in the fast parts of the circuit, most drivers would struggle to try and set up a car up for this particular circuit. It's quite awkward, especially when they initially want to use a low downforce wing setup for minimum jag and to get the maximum speed out of their cars, while of course the tight of course chicanes can also mean that they would go for a high downforce setup to give them the grip they need to go through the corners. But we do know that we've found out that when we are going to be following Michael Schumacher for the extended race highlights of this afternoon's, of course, from earlier on this afternoon, the German Grand Prix, he's acted unbelievably bravely to go for a low downforce wing setup, and that made all the difference for him, of course, qualifying an impressive second place behind Damon Hill, who once again took pole position, and he should fancy his chances. I know that he's been, of course, scoring out of the points, and of course finishing out of the points over the last few races. But we do know, as I've said already, he's already won 2 races so far this year. But this is a big race for him because Michael Schumacher hasn't won his home race in his career. And I don't think we've actually had a German winner at the German Grand Prix for a long, long time. And I don't know exactly when was the last time, but it's amazing to see that he's looking in a very good situation, of course, regarding to hopefully having a good performance in front of his home crowd. Well, with that being said, everybody, I don't think there's anything else for me to cover here, and before it gets too late, it's time for us to now head over and also show you, of course, the starting grid for the 9th round of the reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, with once again the 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix here from Hockenheim. And while that's happening, I'm now going to head over to the commentary box to join my, of course, companion and fellow Formula 1 enthusiast and commentator in crime, that being, of course, the legendary voice of Formula 1 himself, Murray Walker. So with that being said, here is the extended race highlights of round 9 of the reimagined 1995 F1 season, as we once again have extended race highlights of the 9th round of the 1995 reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix here from Hockenheim. Here is the starting grid for round 9 of the reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the German Grand Prix. And once again on pole position is Britain's Damon Hill in his Williams Renault, beating by a narrow time gap of a few tenths of a second for the German driver Michael Schumacher in his Benetton. Third is his Scottish teammate of David Coulthard, fourth being Gerhard Berger in his Ferrari. Fifth and sixth are the duo of the Jordan Peugeot drivers of Barrichello and Irvine. Seventh is Mika Hakkinen with his teammate Blundell in eighth in the McLarens. Ninth is Johnny Herbert with John Alesi in 10th. 11th is the second of the home drivers of this race weekend of Germany, Weintraub Frentzen, with Parnis in 12th and Salo in 13th, with Jean-Christophe Bourgnon in 14th and Max Parpis in 15th. Luca Badeau in his Minardi is 16th, with Katayama in 17th. The Japanese driver of Aguri Suzuki returning to Ligier Muton Honda is 18th, with Taki Inoue in 19th. 20th is Pierluigi Martini with Pedro Diniz in 21st. 22nd, Roberto Marino, with 23rd, Andrea Montemini, and starting at the back, even though it's his F1 debut, is the Italian Giovanni Lavaggi in the second of the Pacific Fords.
Round 9 of the World Championship now here at Hockenheim, Germany.
FIA Formula 1 World Championship. Round 9. The 1995 Grosse Mobile 1 Preis von Deutschland from the circuit of Hockenheim. And now, to take you through all 45 laps of this afternoon's German Grand Prix here from the circuit of Hockenheim, it's now time to hand over to your official race commentators. First of all, Jack Wright, then followed shortly by the legendary voice of Formula 1 himself, Mr. Murray Walker. So, as all 24 drivers are just towards the end of their formation lap and ready to line up on the grid, we are only just a few minutes away from the start of the second half of this reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship season. And once again, to remind you, the 9th round of this year's championship with the 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix here from Hockenheim. Once again, Damon Hill has qualified on pole position again for this race. Another brilliant, of course, performance from the Rotherham's Renault, Williams Renault team, sorry, and of course just beating Michael Schumacher by the most narrowest of margins. It's just absolutely insane that it only went down to a few tenths of a second, and then especially with the likes of David Coulthard, his of course fellow British teammate in second there, of course, for Damon Hill, and brilliant qualifying also as well from the Jordans, also in 5th and 6th there, Barrichello and Eddie Irvine, and also and as well as that we've also seen that especially with the likes of Aguri Suzuki returning back, which we forgot to mention that we do know he's actually now replaced Martin Brundle, as he's now of course now out for a few races. But we do know that he's actually become a bit of a favourite among, of course, the F1 media, because I happen to know that you might be considering actually having, of course, him alongside you, Murray, possibly, for actually commentating on future seasons in Formula 1. But who knows, because I have actually known about him, and as well as being a local driver from Kings Lynn, I do know that he happens to be quite a fountain of knowledge also when it comes to competing in the sport itself of Formula 1. But it's going to be very exciting. As well as that, we do know that Pierluigi Martini is having his final race, unbelievably, for Minardi. There are talks that the Portuguese driver of Pedro Lamy, former Lotus driver from back in 1993, is going to replace him at the next round at the Hungarian Grand Prix at the Hungaroring in Budapest. And also, as well as we mentioned earlier on, the Italian driver of Giovanni Lavaggi, even though that he is a newcomer, sadly he has been struggling with of course the car's performance, and unfortunately he starts right at the back in 24th place. But it's not to say that he won't have a bad race. It's interesting to know that of course, especially with these newcomers, especially like with Jean-Christophe Bourgneuf or not Ferrari, my apologies, of course of Sauber, he still can prove himself that he is one to watch out for in the second half of this year's season. But with that now being said, as the all 24 drivers are now about to line up on, of course, the grid, and we are waiting for those red lights to come on, and we are certainly in for another exciting and relatively fast race, since of course this is one of the longest and I think fastest circuits on the calendar, of course, for this year's championship. So and hopefully, especially from starting in second place on the grid, Michael Schumacher, the German fans are been in fine voice all race weekend, so I'm sure they are hoping for a victory here from, of course, from him, and even possibly a decent result maybe as well for fellow German of Heinz-Harald Frentzen for the Red Bull Sauber Ford team. But we'll find out very soon how they get on. But with that being said, now and exclusively live here on Jackpot Button Lewis Sports Productions, it's time for round 9 of the Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship as we kick off the second half of this season, as we have live and extended race coverage of the 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix here from Hockenheim.
Watch the lights. We've got real excitement coming up now. Red, green, go! Straight down towards turn 1 they come.
And what an eventful first corner! Schumacher.
Beautiful start.
Well, I wouldn't say he had a beautiful start there, Murray. He immediately lost second place there to the Ferraris of, I think that was Berger and Alesi. And a brilliant start, I think, there from Barrichello, who has now moved up to, I think they're 4th, I think, there, as well as the McLaren of Mika Hakkinen. Through the second of the tight first gear chicanes, but I don't think Schumacher, he was carrying a lot of speed because he's currently got a low downforce wing setup. But look at this! Out of nowhere! Alesi! No!
It was almost certainly a collision there. He's been overtaken.
And I can't believe it! Somehow the Ferrari of, I think that was John Alesi, he just sideswiped Schumacher there. And with that, that's an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning. I don't think Schumacher knew that. Oh my goodness!
That's down a position.
Well, I can't believe what is...
Enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. I'm sure there was contact there.
There most certainly was, Murray. And I think that was Mark Blundell. And he's also got an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning for also hitting the side of Schumacher's Benetton.
In first place, David Coulthard. Second, Damon Hill. In third position, Mika Hakkinen. In fourth place, Rubens Barrichello. The gap is growing. In fifth position, Gerhard Berger. In sixth place, Jean Alesi.
And look at this, as you just saw at the back of Schumacher's car. I think that was Heinz-Harald Frentzen and also Olivier Panis in his Ligier. I feel like that, even though he's running a low downforce wing setup, Schumacher is being relatively slow at the moment, which is very peculiar to see. Sparks fly off from the behind of Schumacher's Benetton, trying to block, of course.
Mark Blundell. 10th, Michael Schumacher. 11th, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
Well, my apologies, it actually was Pouliot. I didn't realise. I think his teammate, oh, and he just clips the grass, but keeps it on the tarmac. And he's right behind his rear wing.
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
I wouldn't say that, Murray. He is really struggling here at the moment, and it's only just the first 2 laps. And David Coulthard
The gap is increasing.
is currently leading once again the 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix here from Hockenheim.
He's hard on the accelerator.
Well, he's literally hit the 200 miles an hour mark. And he's hit.
Race order. In first place, David Coulthard. Second, Damon Hill. In third position, Mika Häkkinen. In fourth, Johnny Herbert. Fifth, Gerhard Berger. In sixth place, Rubens Barrichello.
And as you were just about to say the race order there, Murray, he was literally hitting the red line on his speedometer in his Benetton Renault. Over 210 miles an hour down the first of the long winding straights around this circuit. But that was relatively quick through the third of the chicanes here at the Hockenheim Circuit, and he's now trying to catch up desperately with the McLaren Mercedes of Mark Blundell.
Ninth, Mark Blundell. They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time. 10th, Michael Schumacher. 11th, Jean-Christophe Pouliot.
Hill is in second, Johnny Herbert
The gap
is third, Häkkinen fourth, Berger fifth, and Rubens Barrichello in this Jordan Peugeot round up the top six at the present moment. There was a 1.2 second gap, and now it's gone down, or up now, sadly. It's increased to 2.276 of a second. And a 17-second gap between Schumacher and Coulthard, as it was initially 16 seconds from the previous lap.
Race order. The race leader, David Coulthard. In second, Damon Hill. Third, Johnny Herbert. In fourth position, Gerhard Berger. In fifth place, Mika Häkkinen. Sixth, Rubens Barrichello.
Well, that was really unfortunate for Schumacher there. I know it's only just the start of this Grand Prix, but he would have wished for a much more better start than that, and that was disgraceful driving there from, I think, John Alesi earlier on.
He really loves these kind of conditions.
And it's very rare that we see driving like that from himself or even his Austrian teammate of Gerhard Berger, but surprisingly enough, he has not opted out to that same driving style.
10th, Michael Schumacher. 11th, Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
As much as, sorry to interrupt you there, Murray, as Gerhard Berger from the last race was under the threat of a potential one race ban. The current fastest lap there, 1 minute 51 points. I think we just missed it there if you did actually see it on your screen, but Coulthard currently holds the fastest lap so far, as Michael Schumacher still remains not exactly in a lonely 10th place, but there's a hard challenge in front of him.
Race order. In first place, David Coulthard. In second position, Damon Hill. In third, Johnny Herbert. He's accelerating hard now. In fourth position, Gerhard Berger. In fifth place, Mika Häkkinen. Sixth, Rubens Barrichello.
And I think,
He's gained a lot of time there.
as you were just about to say there, Murray, he's already managed to make up quite a bit of time. And he's now managed to catch up with Mark Blundell's McLaren in 9th place. Well, the McLarens have definitely had quite an unpredictable season so far, but Schumacher's Benetton is no match for his McLaren. He is right behind him.
Mark Blundell. Marvellous. He forces his way through.
Well, I don't think he forced himself
He's definitely gaining.
there, Murray, but that was quite an effortless overtake there from the young German. And now he has regained 9th place. He has still got the car, being supposedly the fastest driver on the grid of this season. And now Damon Hill now takes the lead of the German Grand Prix and leading by 21 seconds, 776 hundredths of a second so far.
Race order. The race leader, Damon Hill. In second place, David Coulthard. Third, Johnny Herbert. He's definitely gaining. In fourth place, Gerhard Berger. In fifth position, Mika Häkkinen. Sixth, Rubens Barrichello.
Well, I think I know why he was going relatively slow earlier on at the start of the race here, Murray. I think that might be down to the low wing downforce setup.
The gap is growing.
It's decreased of course, the grip on the car, but it has made it more faster among the more straightforward and also fast circuits, like, of course, the circuit of Hockenheim for this afternoon's Grand Prix.
And the gap is closing.
Well,
Eddie Irvine. 9th. Michael Schumacher. 10th. Mark Blundell.
well, as you said, Murray, it's definitely looking more likely that Schumacher is starting to make up time now.
He's having to use the brakes an awful lot.
He did lock up his brakes there. I think, luckily, he didn't flat spot his tyres there. He just went in a little bit too late through that second chicane, but he is definitely making up some time to catch up with Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine in his Jordan Peugeot.
Acceleration there.
Well, he most certainly is flooring that accelerator pedal in his Benetton right now.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. The gap is growing. Race order. First, Damon Hill. In second place, David Coulthard. In third, Johnny Herbert. In fourth position, Gerhard Berger. In fifth, Mika Häkkinen. Sixth, Rubens Barrichello. He's a bit off the pace there.
I think he was slightly slower, but he is still maintaining a gap to Irvine. So, once again, this race is still far from over as Coulthard, my apologies, Damon Hill, who is the new race leader,
And the gap is closing.
as he is, of course, starting lap 7 out of 45 of this afternoon's 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix. And it looks like Irvine is getting slowed up by some, I don't know if that's back markers.
Eddie Irvine. 9th, Michael Schumacher. 10th, Mark Blundell.
It looks like, I think, both Irvine and Alesi have been held up here by one of the 40 course Fords, I think. I think that could be Moreno.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. He's closing the gap.
No, my apologies, that actually was a Jordan Peugeot. That was both Eddie Irvine, and I think Rubens Barrichello has lost his 6th place. He's now into 7th. And I think he might have...
Race order. In first, Damon Hill. In second place, David Coulthard. In third position, Johnny Herbert. In fourth, Gerhard Berger. Fifth, Mika Häkkinen. In sixth position, Jean Alesi.
as I was just going to...
Blackout.
Flat out indeed, as Schumacher is on a real charge to now try and overtake both the Jordan Peugeots of Rubens Barrichello and Eddie Irvine in 7th and 8th. But look at this! They have literally teaming up and tried to double block him here. What a brilliant tactic from of course the British team. But I don't think it is enough because the Peugeot engine hasn't got as enough power as that Renault V10 in the Benetton.
9th, Michael Schumacher. 10th, Mark Blundell.
Coulthard
This
set.
young man really is a superlative driver.
Well, he certainly has been proving it
He's a bit off the pace there.
in the first half of this year's championship. And he's right up the rear wing of Eddie Irvine's Jordan so far still. He goes slightly wide, but he stays on the racing line. We know that the Jordan is not as quick as that Benetton, so Jordan have got a huge challenge ahead of them with both their drivers. But here goes Schumacher!
First place, Damon Hill. In second, David Coulthard. In third place, Johnny Herbert. In fourth position, Gerhard Berger. He's closing the gap. In fifth, Mika Häkkinen. In sixth place, Jean Alesi.
Well, in all of that, of course, confusion with you saying the race order there, Murray, Michael Schumacher has now moved up to 7th place, overtaking both Eddie Irvine and Rubens Barrichello's Jordans. And now he's right back in it. And only just a few seconds behind John Alesi's Ferrari. As he's already lapped the Italian newcomer
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
of Java.
Michael Schumacher. 8th, Eddie Irvine.
Of Giovanni Lavaggi, and that's past Andrea Montemini, fellow Italian for the Pacific Ford team. And he's only just 1.1 seconds behind John Alesi.
The gap is increasing.
Damon Hill is currently now 30 seconds ahead of Schumacher. And since this is quite a long and winding circuit, we've already heard from Michael Schumacher's race engineer, they might be attempting just a one stop this afternoon because of the tyre wear
A lot of time now.
is
Race
not...
order. First, Damon Hill. In second place, David Coulthard. In third, Gerhard Berger.
It's not as...
Fourth position, Johnny Herbert. In fifth, Mika Häkkinen. Sixth, Jean Alesi.
It's not as high as other circuits have been so far on the calendar this year. My apologies for interrupting you there, Murray. You seem to be saying the race order a lot this afternoon. At least you're constantly reminding all of the viewers who are the top 6 at the moment.
This young man really is a superlative driver.
Well, once again, as you say, once more, Murray. And look at this, he is now right underneath John Alesi's Ferrari rear wing, as he's that close now to getting back into the championship points.
7. Michael Schumacher. 8. Eddie Irvine.
That was very smooth through the last corner there. The Ferrari's got a slight advantage, but Schumacher is hot on Alesi's heels here. They nearly go wheel to wheel.
That's taken him into the points.
And it most certainly has, Murray. He's back in the top 6 as he overtakes past
Gap is closing.
Roberto Moreno's 40. But as we were going to say earlier on, we're expecting maybe Michael Schumacher, even though he's on a half tank of fuel.
First, Damon Hill. In second, Gerhard Berger. In third place, David Coulthard. In fourth position, Johnny Herbert. In fifth, Mika Häkkinen. Sixth, Michael Schumacher. That's powerful acceleration there. They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Well, he's really now starting to push now here, Michael. Here, Murray.
And the gap is closing.
And of course, he is still in this race. Gerhard Berger has moved up to second now. Coulthard has dropped now to fourth. And this is not good for him in the Drivers' Championship at the moment, because he is leading by 10 points. And Schumacher, if he can have a good chance of
The gap is increasing.
overtaking him as well as Häkkinen, he could really close the gap in the Drivers' Championship. And even though it's still into the first quarter of this race, we shouldn't write off Schumacher, because he would love to win here this afternoon, following his British teammate Johnny Herbert winning,
He's gained a lot of time there.
of course, at Silverstone a few weeks ago. And we've just, once again, to clarify, have been told by the race engineer of Michael Schumacher, he might be coming in either around about the lap 15 to 30 laps of the race distance. His tyres will be all right, but
Race order. In first place, Damon Hill. In second, Gerhard Berger. They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time. In third position, Johnny Herbert. In fourth place, David Coulthard. Fifth, Mika Häkkinen. In sixth, Michael Schumacher. And the gap is closing.
take a breath, Murray. And as I was just about to say, he's going to have possibly a top-up of fuel, which will take him maybe to the end of this race, even though he may want to not exactly run a heavy tank of fuel in his car. He just clips the grass on the right side.
He's a bit off the pace there.
He keeps the car on the tarmac. But he is still edging away of that, of course, time gap, so it's far from over for Michael Schumacher so far to try and get on
The gap is increasing.
the podium, especially when the drivers come in for, and most of them I think might be doing either 1 or 2 stops. But that's what made it all important for Johnny Herbert to win the British Grand Prix. He bravely stayed out for just 1, of course, pit stop. And that unbelievably made all the difference with the undercut he did. And I'm sure that maybe Schumacher would want to try and do that similar, of course, tactic of this afternoon.
And really is a superlative driver.
Well, as you say once again, Murray, he is still proving that as the current world champion.
Race order. In first, Damon Hill. In second place, Gerhard Berger. He's closing the gap. In third position, Johnny Herbert. In fourth, David Coulthard. Fifth, Mika Häkkinen. In sixth place, Michael Schumacher.
And as we edge towards the first quarter of this race done, David Coulthard still sets the fastest lap, a 1 minute 51.365 hundredths of a second. This is all important for Williams, who want to try and close the gap on Benetton in the Constructors' Championship, as 31 laps are remaining of this afternoon's 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix here from Hockenheim. The race order still there. Hill, Berger and Herbert in the top three. Then Coulthard. Then Häkkinen. And now Michael Schumacher, who just overtook John Alesi a few laps ago.
It's not enough to be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
Well, absolutely, Murray, as you...
Hard on the accelerator.
He flooring the pedal once again. But he is proving he is not lucky. He's more than good, because he is really showing
And he's gained a lot of time there.
what he can do when he is under pressure
Race
of...
order. In first, Damon Hill. Second, Gerhard Berger. In third position, Johnny Herbert. In fourth place, David Coulthard. Fifth, Mika Häkkinen. In sixth, Michael Schumacher.
especially being on the limit and pushing both his physical and mental ability to the absolute limit than any other.
And the gap is closing.
In any, of course, pinnacle motorsport championship. And we'd like to apologise for the unexpected freeze there on of course your cameras there, from the cameras that were broadcasting this of course race. I think that is due to a record scratch, but a game disc scratch, but we can only thoroughly apologise.
He really loves these kind of conditions.
We heard that in qualifying yesterday, the same thing happened, and it completely took us by surprise. And that's comfortably past Luca Badoa's Minardi, and now he's about to catch up
And he's gained a lot of time there.
with the flying fin of Mika Häkkinen in his McLaren. I know it looked relatively slow going out that corner, but he is maintaining the racing line.
In first, Damon Hill. Second, Gerhard Berger. In third position, Johnny Herbert. In fourth place, David Coulthard. Fifth, Mika Häkkinen. In sixth position, Michael Schumacher.
He was very quick through that chicane there, Schumacher. And he's nearing ever so closer to Mika Häkkinen's McLaren, wheel to wheel. As they head to the second chicane, he gets past.
He forces his way through.
Well, I know we couldn't show the rear view camera there, But that was a brilliant overtake.
Lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
Well, as you say again, Murray, that was a bold move there from the German on the fin of Mika Hakkinen in his McLaren Mercedes. And now he is currently in a very promising 5th place.
He's definitely gaining.
And he most certainly is, Murray. And he is holding on to 2 all-important championship points, but that is not enough. He certainly wants his eye on possibly winning this afternoon's German Grand Prix. It's not out of the question yet, though. As the drivers are about to reach the pit stop window, Coulthard still sets the fastest lap at 1 minute 51.365 hundredths of a second, but I'm sure Schumacher would like to try and break that, especially since he has got the faster car.
The race leader, Damon Hill. In second place, Gerhard Berger. He's definitely gaining. In third place, Johnny Herbert. Remarkable! Spectacular overtaking there.
And out of nowhere, from a hold-up, I think, with Giovanni Lavaggi's Pacific, Schumacher, as he violently rides over that curb there. He now takes 4th place from David Coulthard.
You've got to be good. And he is that.
How many more times are you going to say that this afternoon, Murray?
He's accelerating hard now.
I don't think Schumacher is relatively relying on luck this afternoon. It's just because of the back markers slowing down Coulthard, and he caught him napping there.
He's definitely gaining.
And this has put Schumacher in a very strong position as he's once again now up into 4th place and holding on to 3 Drivers' Championship points. That will also go towards Benetton Renault in the Constructors' Championship as he's about to lap Andrea Montemini's
And the gap is closing.
Pacific for another time this afternoon. He nearly brushes the grass going through the first corner. But now he has got quite a gap to close in on his British teammate. The winner from the last race at the British Grand Prix.
The gap is increasing.
That being Johnny Herbert. There's a 15-second gap, but since Schumacher is literally flying around this Hockenheim circuit.
Damon Hill, Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher.
I think Michael is going to have no problem catching up with his teammate. He has got some real blistering pace in his
This young man really is a superlative driver.
Benetton Renault. Well, we're really seeing some incredible driving skills once again from Michael Schumacher here this afternoon as he approaches Massimiliano Parpis's footwork, who he overtakes with ease.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
And he's also about to overtake the other footwear cart of Japanese Taki Inoue. And there's a very narrow gap between Hill and Berger fighting for the lead. Down to 100ths of a second now.
The gap is growing.
Well, there is a blue flag waved from the marshals. Taki Inoue needs to let him pass. And Massimiliano Papis out of nowhere has managed to catch up. And that's not even with a boost in his car.
He's accelerating hard now.
How on earth did that Hart engine manage to even, of course, maintain a small time gap along with of course the Renault-powered Benetton there. That is quite a remarkable thing that we've just seen there. Oh no!
This young man really is a superlative driver. Race order: Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher.
Schumacher just late braked himself and he just went on the grass with a mixture of gravel, but luckily his car didn't get buried in it and he's still in this race. As he passes Frenchman Olivier Panis in his Ligier. And now Gerhard Berger is now the new race leader of this afternoon's 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix, who you might remember at the top of the programme previously won here the year before in 1994, along with an impressive performance
He's losing ground.
were by Olivier Panis and also Eric Barnard, that were racing for both the Ligier team last season, also unbelievably powered by Renault engines. But the Mugen Honda engines are quite a far cry to the Renault power that they received
He's definitely gaining.
this time last year, but this is some very promising driving here from Schumacher at the moment, as Berger has started lap 20 out of 45 of this afternoon's German Grand Prix.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
He's catching up with the back markers again. Once again,
Order: Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher.
that being Pedro Deniz's 40 course Ford. And when he late braked
And he's gained a lot of time there.
into the chicane earlier on in the last lap, I think the tyres are starting to wear slightly, so yeah, unbelievably, we've already been told he is going to try and attempt an undercut. He's going to come in on lap 21 for his first pit stop. In he comes. A little slow through the pit lane entry there, but in he comes.
Unbelievable. He'd better watch his speed.
And he was nearly running on fumes there, as he has a top up of fuel quite a lot here.
Hey, it's a slow stop.
Well, that was because he...
Michael Schumacher. 10. Olivier Panis.
He had a top up of fuel there, which I think will make...
A real battle out there.
I feel like that even though that's quite the heavy fuel load, that will possibly might get him to the end of the race here. So, and his tyres were relatively fine. He got about 20%
Acceleration there.
damage on his
Gap is growing.
front wing. But surprisingly enough, it is not affecting him speed-wise so far. And Gerhard Berger is now leading 1 minute and 9 seconds to Michael Schumacher so far. I don't know if he's already pitted yet, but
Race order: Gerhard Berger, Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, Jean Alesi.
we do know when the drivers start pitting, this will definitely mix up the field, as he, of course, rejoined, of course, the race in 9th place and behind by 24 seconds to Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine in his Jordan, of course, Total sponsored Jordan Grand Prix car.
He's closing the gap.
Eddie Irvine is currently in 6th place. Well, that was, of course, before I think he pitted, as he must have just come in from earlier on. I think a few of the other drivers are starting to pit as well.
He's a bit off the pace there.
One has gone in.
To be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that. Sensational! He forces his way through.
Well, that was all because I don't know who that was, Murray, but whoever went in for a pit stop, that's now gifted another place
He's closing the gap.
to Michael Schumacher, and now he's in 8th place. Well, I think that was good timing of doing his first pit stop, even though other drivers have yet to pit. I think it will definitely work in the long run for Schumacher here. And it might be just enough for him to maybe finish on not exactly the podium this afternoon, but
Race order. Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert, Damon Hill, Mika Häkkinen.
I'm certainly not making prophecies right now, Murray, but of course Schumacher, especially from pitting earlier,
And the gap is closing.
that was a brave move for him to do, but he's now catching up with John Alesi's Ferrari by 3.4 hundredths of a second. I don't know if Berger has pitted yet.
The gap is growing. He really loves these kind of conditions.
Well, a few drivers have come out here.
Michael Schumacher. 8. Mika Häkkinen. And the gap is closing.
And he overtakes past a lapped Mika Häkkinen, as well as Taki Inoue's footwork Hearts. Past Pedro Deniz's 40. And now the gap is down to 41 seconds. I feel like Berger's must have pitted. So this is really gave Schumacher a bit more of a chance to catch up now.
Race order. Gerhard Berger. Eddie Irvine. David Coulthard. Johnny Herbert.
That's incredible there. I can't believe you actually said that, Murray. Eddie Irvine in his Jordan Peugeot is now in 2nd place. I think Coulthard and Hill must have just pitted earlier. And now there's 3.4 seconds to Alesi.
Being overtaken.
What's that?
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time. The gap is growing.
Well, it looked like he was racing someone during the pit lane entry there, Murray. But all in that confusion, now Schumacher is back into the points of 6th place.
The gap is increasing.
Damon Hill looked like, I think he just pitted earlier, but now he's lost 6 to Schumacher now. That's passed once again Roberto Moreno's 40. And now Eddie Irvine, unbelievably, is leading the German Grand Prix in his Jordan Peugeot. To all you viewers watching right now, this is actually happening. Do not adjust your sets. This is really happening right now and right here, right now. Here at Hockenheim, a Jordan Peugeot is leading.
Right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time. Race order. Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert.
Well, that's where you're wrong there, Murray, because that was from the last lap, but Eddie Irvine, I think for the first time ever in history, the total Jordan Peugeot Formula One Grand Prix team.
He's definitely gaining. Look at that! Spectacular overtaking there.
Are leading a Formula One Grand Prix race for the first time in history. And another driver is pitted, and Schumacher is now up to 4th now. I think that undercut made all the difference, and that's put Schumacher right back into this race once again. As we're unbelievably already about to approach the halfway stage of this afternoon's 1995 Mobile One German Grand Prix here from Hockenheim. Irvine leads, Coulthard 2nd, Alesi 3rd, Berger 4th, Schumacher in 5th, and amazingly, Mark Blundell and his Marlboro McLaren Mercedes
Really is a superlative driver.
in 6th place.
He's definitely gaining.
Well, this has been a brilliant drive from Schumacher so far to make up for the unexpected, of course,
Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard, Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher.
surprise start that he ended up going down unbelievably from 2nd to
The gap is increasing.
7th place, I think it was. Still no change to the fastest lap of David Coulthard, who finds himself back in 2nd place. And holding on to 6 points. But once again, to remind you,
And he's gained a lot of time there.
if Michael Schumacher were to win this afternoon's German Grand Prix, he would close the championship gap in the Drivers' Championship down to 0. And there would be currently a 6-point lead, as David Coulthard is currently holding on to 6 points, currently in 2nd place. Schumacher is starting to catch up on John Alesi in his Ferrari. First of all, he overtakes past Lavargi.
This young man really is a superlative driver.
Well, I wouldn't just call Michael Schumacher being a superlative driver. You have to give it to Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine here. In only his, I think, 2nd year in Formula One. And I never ever thought that we would see him lead a Formula One Grand Prix race. Especially for a team like Jordan, who, especially towards the, as I said now, the 2nd half of this year's championship,
He's losing ground.
they're really now
Eddie Irvine, Jean Alesi, David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher.
They are really now starting to find their form,
The sun is out and the weather is fine.
and I think this is not the first
He's closing the gap.
time we'll be seeing Schumacher, as he's now catching up with David Coulthard in his Williams. This is all important points for Schumacher in the Drivers' Championship here. After the dominance from the last few races, Coulthard is in a bit of bother here. They're practically under a second of each other now. Almost now down to now half a second.
He's hard on the accelerator. He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Coulthard was slow through that chicane, but he just does enough to hold off Schumacher. But Schumacher has got the faster car.
He's losing ground.
Not by much, Murray. He is still maintaining that time gap. He is seriously under threat here, the current championship leader. Oh, he goes wide out of the final corner. But he's got more top speed in that Renault-powered car. But then again, Williams have got the same engine power as Benetton have. So it's very evenly matched here. And he gets slowed up.
Eddie Irvine, John Alesi, David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher.
And I think he just overtook Mika Häkkinen's McLaren. And that was an aggressive move there from Coulthard. Schumacher goes for another move. Closing on. Coulthard's Williams once again getting closer and closer. Oh, and a little skid on the curb, but Schumacher keeps control and stays on the tarmac. And luckily avoids spinning.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
Oh, he took a lot of curb there on that chicane, Schumacher. And I think Häkkinen wants to try and unlap himself here. But Schumacher was still concentrating on David Coulthard. He stays on the racing line. That was very smooth through both of those corners. He still is, Murray, through the first corner. And a brilliant charge, and he's passed.
Spectacular overtaking there. Flat out.
And he's nearing the red line on his Renault-powered Benetton.
He's closing the gap.
Oh!
On the brakes. Race order. Eddie Irvine, John Alesi, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard.
And he nearly locked up, flat spotting his tyres. But he just managed to avoid the gravel because of how quick his car was going on that low downforce wing setup. But Schumacher is really on a charge now.
This young man really is a superlative driver.
And as you say that, Murray, for the umpteenth time, now only 20 seconds stand between. I can't believe I'm actually saying his name here. Eddie Irvine in his total Jordan Grand Prix Peugeot-powered car to a possible first race victory in his career. We do know that his best result in Formula One since competing last year racing for the Jordan Hart team when they had Hart-powered engines, it was only 12th place.
He's losing ground.
And I think Berger's just come in for his pit stop. And now he's only 4 seconds to John Alesi. As we approach the 3/4 length with 15 laps to go of this afternoon's 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix here from Hockenheim.
Race order. Eddie Irvine, Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell. They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Well, as you said earlier on, Murray, Schumacher is really pushing himself now to try and close that gap between Jean Alesi. And he just clips the grass, but luckily avoids a spin out. And once again, Eddie Irvine in his Jordan.
He's definitely gaining.
Oh, he just clips the grass. Still regains control. Schumacher is really on it here. He is doing everything to try and increase his chances of trying to hopefully win this afternoon. More drivers are coming in. Oh, and that completely came out of nowhere. I think that was Aguri Suzuki coming out of the pit lane in his Ligier Mugen Honda. But luckily Schumacher saw him and then he nearly almost hit him there. But quick thinking reactions from the German. Once again, as we said earlier on before the start of the race, this is the first race back for the Japanese driver of Aguri Suzuki, following a driver change of Martin Brundle, who last raced at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone.
He really loves these kind of conditions.
Well, I was going to say, Murray, that we've had some glorious...
Eddie Irvine, Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell. That's powerful acceleration there.
We've had some glorious sunshine and sunny weather this afternoon and for this race weekend here in at Hockenheim in Germany.
And the gap is closing.
A lot more brighter conditions than when we had a lot of cloud around, but it was still relatively warm, but it was quite windy in places. As Eddie Irvine starts lap 32
The gap is increasing.
of 45 and a 9-second gap to Alesi. So far as he still continues to lead this race, but Schumacher is still within half a chance.
He's definitely gaining.
Well, he's still been very consistent with these lap times, even though he hasn't set the fastest lap of this afternoon's Grand Prix yet. But they're making all the difference so that he can still have a chance in, as still at the moment he is currently...
Right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
He is currently holding on to a precious podium finish at the moment. For the first time since he last finished on the podium back at the Canadian Grand Prix.
Race order. Eddie Irvine, Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell.
The gap closed down to 12 seconds. Oh! And there's contact! I think that might be Luca Badoa in his Minardi. He made contact, I think that with one of the Ligers. I think that's Parnis. And that's an unsportsmanlike behaviour warning since he made contact.
He's losing ground.
Oh, he nearly got him through the first corner. Whoa! And it looks like his fellow Italian teammate, Luca Badoa, Pierluigi Martini, has just come out
Is increasing.
from his pit stop. No, that was actually Damon Hill, my apologies. And in all in that confusion, Mark Blundell has managed to overtake past.
This young man really is a superlative driver.
Parnis as well. And he just does the same past Damon Hill. But Hill is determined to try and unlap himself. He fights off also Blundell's McLaren.
Powerful acceleration there.
And now from 5 seconds is now up to 8 seconds with Alesi here. But he wants to try and get past these back markers as quickly as possible, Schumacher, so he can still stand a chance of...
Race order. Eddie Irvine, John Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell.
catching up with Irvine's Jordan and again Alesi's Ferrari. It's now down to 2 seconds.
The gap is growing.
But still 9 seconds to Schumacher, but if Alesi is going to try and fight Alesi... Now that, of course, Irvine tried to fight Alesi. That will also give a chance for Schumacher
He's closing the gap.
to catch up also in suit as well.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
It's now down to 7 seconds. I think the back markers can maybe play a part in this, as it had did a few weeks ago at Silverstone. As we are approaching the last 10 laps of this afternoon's German Grand Prix.
And the gap is closing.
Now down to 5 seconds. As he about...
Eddie Irvine, John Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell.
And a Ferrari was in the pit lane, but that's not Alesi. I didn't think he would pit anyway because he is holding on to another all-important podium finish for Ferrari here. I think that must have been Gerhard Berger.
He's a bit off the pace there. He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Schumacher overtakes past. I think that was Aguri Suzuki's Ligier once more. This is still quite remarkable to see that, unbelievably, Mark Blundell in his McLaren has managed to maintain a 2.7 gap to Schumacher. All important points here for the Marlboro McLaren Mercedes team.
He's closing the gap.
They are still currently in third place in the Drivers' Championship, and Blundell is holding on to 3 precious championship points so far in the Drivers' Championship, and for the Constructors as well there for McLaren Mercedes. 3.6 seconds. But no, Alesi has actually overtaken Irvine. As 9 laps are remaining of this afternoon's German Grand Prix.
Order. John Alesi, Eddie Irvine, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell. He's definitely gaining.
And I think I can see Eddie Irvine's car in the distance. It looks like it's slowing.
Must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Wow, what an incredible bit of driving though from the Northern Irishman here. And we certainly have not expected to see a driver like him, who of course is one of the main drivers on all of our branding here on Grand Prix Formula 1. He was not normally that much of a competitive driver from all those years back then. But this is an all-important podium for Jordan,
And the gap is closing.
making up for another amazing podium that happened courtesy of his Brazilian teammate Rubens Barrichello a few weeks back at the British Grand Prix. As we go into the closing stages of this afternoon's German Grand Prix of 1995. Schumacher's looking very quick there. Irvine's vulnerable and he's passed.
Unbelievable. Spectacular overtaking there.
And he literally went straight
Definitely gaining.
past him in a flash there, Murray.
Race order. John Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Eddie Irvine, Mark Blundell.
He's catching up with more back markers. This could possibly slow down Alesi. He caught a little bit of grass there, but he just kept control of his Benetton Schumacher. As he passes Lavagi's Pacific and Martini's Minardi.
The gap is increasing.
I'm sure it's not by much here, Murray, because as long as Schumacher can maintain the gap, as it was 6 seconds earlier on, it's now down to 7. We know that Schumacher has got the faster car to Alesi, even though it is got more, of course, of a
He's a bit off the pace there.
larger engine configuration, a V12 engine compared to the V10 of the Renault powered Benetton. The rev limiter
And the gap is closing.
nearly hits the red line again as Schumacher floors the pedal again.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Well, I don't think he's just doing that. He might have a sweat on in that because he is literally pushing his mind and body.
John Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell, Eddie Irvine.
Certainly to the limit. But no, Irvine has lost third. An all-important podium for Jordan is now out of the question, unfortunately. What a shame for Eddie Irvine. But he is still holding on to all-important points for the Jordan Total Peugeot-powered Grand Prix team. Schumacher is catching up with, I think that's Mika Hakkinen. Now, once again, Blundell is actually behind But Hockenheim comes in for one final pit stop.
He's a bit off the pace there.
Now Schumacher needs to get past these back markers as quickly as possible, because he's running out of laps to try and possibly overtake Alesi for the win here.
And the gap is closing. This young man really is a superlative driver.
It's now down to 5.7 seconds.
He's braking hard.
He did lock up there a little late into the corner. Hopefully that hasn't affected the time gap too much, as we're approaching the final 5 laps of this afternoon's
Race order. Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell, David Coulthard.
1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix here at Hockenheim. And David Coulthard is now back up.
And the gap is closing.
It's now 4.880 hundredths of a second. Has Alesi... I wouldn't say he's bitten off more he can chew, because he's still maintaining that gap. Bournier is in 6th.
The gap is increasing.
Irvine 5th, Coulthard 4th, holding on to 3 points. And look at this! No way! Yes!
Definitely gaining. He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Oh, my apologies. I thought that was Alesi. That was actually Berger. My apologies, everybody. I thought he actually overtook... Oh! Oh, my goodness. That was an awkward landing over the curbs, but Schumacher needed to overtake Berger. Oof. And nearly an illegal blocking manoeuvre there from... I think that was Frentzen there in his Red Bull Sauber. But despite that happening, as he now catches up with Bournier in his Sauber, he just holds him off.
Race order. Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell, David Coulthard. Hang on.
I can't believe it, Murray, and Gerhard Berger once again has sideswiped Schumacher.
The gap is increasing.
Oh my goodness. Well, I can't believe Berger has done it again. For another time he has hit the side of Schumacher. And I think he's on a final warning.
Pace there. They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
He's on a final warning for unsportsmanlike behaviour, because that move was completely unnecessary. Oh, he nearly tried to brake check that Minardi. But now he's got past Martini there.
Pedal to the metal. Flat out.
There's only a 9-second gap, but is it too late for Schumacher to try and close that gap, even though there was
The gap is increasing.
Down to 10 seconds now. That is not what Schumacher needed, and it didn't help because of going through those back markers.
Race order. John Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell, David Coulthard.
I think it didn't help either because I think he got tagged behind by...
He's a bit off the pace there.
I think that was either Bouillon or Frentzen, because both of the Saubers were actually just behind him after when he overtook them. They should have, held back and without trying to go for quite the adventurous move like we just saw there.
And the gap is closing. This young man really is a superlative driver.
Back down to 9 seconds. Schumacher on Alesi. Just brushing the grass on the curb. But he still keeps the car under control as we approach the final 3 laps of this afternoon's German Grand Prix here from Hockenheim.
He's definitely gaining.
Now down to 8 seconds. Schumacher needs to avoid any mistakes if he's got any chance now of catching up with Alesi's Ferrari now. The pressure is really on, but can he do it?
Only 2 more laps to go. He's losing ground. Race order. John Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell, David Coulthard. He's closing the gap. He really loves these kind of conditions.
Alesi is just about to start his final lap here.
He's definitely gaining.
And this is quite incredible because for the first time ever, Jean Alesi hasn't yet to win a Grand Prix in Formula 1. His best result was second, going back to the Monaco Grand Prix, as Michael Schumacher in his Benetton Renault starts the final lap.
We're into the final lap. He's a bit off the pace there.
No, I don't think he's going to do it, unfortunately. That must be absolutely devastating for Schumacher. It really hasn't been his afternoon today.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. Race order. John Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mark Blundell, David Coulthard. He's accelerating hard. Jean Alesi. The Tifosi will be overjoyed with this result. Second, Michael Schumacher.
That place is going to mean some well-deserved points.
Well, everybody, I never got the chance to say it before Schumacher managed to cross the finish line in second place, but unbelievably, for the first time ever in Formula One, Frenchman Jean Alesi, he is the winner of the 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix. That is an incredible achievement from the Frenchman, and finally, after a few races after his best race performance of second back at the Monaco Grand Prix, he has finally made up for the missed opportunity on winning at the Canadian Grand Prix. But another amazing performance there from Michael Schumacher, even though that he did, of course, finish once again another on the podium, once again another second place, which is another great achievement. I think that's actually his first one of the year, actually, I could be wrong. But amazing to hear that finally after, of course, once again, 8 races, once again to clarify, for the first time ever in his Formula 1 career, Frenchman Jean Alesi wins this afternoon's 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix here from Hockenheim. So, in a turn of unexpected events, this has been now unbelievably a day since the race, and I know that we certainly weren't expecting, of course, to find ourselves in this particular situation on this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. But as you did just see there from yesterday, of course, of the extended race highlights of this afternoon's, of course, from yesterday afternoon's, actually, I may add, of course, of the 1995 Mobile 1 German Grand Prix from Hockenheim. As you did see there, it, of course, was totally unexpected for us to go to the following day afterwards, and also as well, if you are seeing a little change in my clothes that I'm wearing, it's because there's been a little bit of a continuity, of course, problem following because of how warm it's been inside of our studio. Literally, I've been sweating, of course, in the previous outfit that I wore, but I still have, of course, got an alternative spare, of course, Jordan t-shirt here, which I did wear earlier on back at the start of this series for the Brazilian Grand Prix. But as you did just see there from yesterday, an unbelievable first victory result for the Frenchman of Jean Alesi in his Ferrari, but an absolute heartbreak for the German fans there of Michael Schumacher, who just narrowly missed out on being unbelievably, possibly the first German driver to win his home Grand Prix, and since the inaugural season back in 1950, from what I found out after research before the race actually happened. But As you did see there earlier on, he didn't sadly get the best start, even though he started in second, but he was literally swarmed by other cars. And I think also as well, it has to be said, if you did actually see towards the end of the race, once again, another disgraceful bit of unsportsmanlike behaviour style driving from Austrian Gerhard Berger. And once again, after the race from yesterday, he has been summoned to the FIA stewards. And what we do know is that, of course, we can give you a bit of an update, is that he is now on a final warning to possibly be facing a race ban, possibly from the next few races of this year's championship. So, but as we did see there, of course, in commentary there with myself and Murray Walker, it was quite shameful driving there once again from the Austrian, and he wasn't like this, of course, in real life. It's all just down to the AI in the game, and that's the worst that we've seen it in all of the races we've covered so far on this series of Grand Prix Formula 1, and we can only thoroughly apologise for that. Of course, a display of disgraceful style driving that we saw from just from the highlights, the race highlights of the German Grand Prix from yesterday afternoon. But despite that, once again, Michael Schumacher had to settle with second, and even though he missed out on a win, he could have been right back into the thick of it at the moment in the Drivers' Championship. He has still managed to close the gap on David Coulthard, who managed to, I think, to my knowledge, as we can actually quickly have a look and remind you of the race classification after 45 laps of the last, of course, yesterday's, of course, 1995 German Grand Prix. Once again, John Alesi wins the race with a total race time of 1 hour, 26 minutes, 57 seconds, 0.404 hundredths of a second. Once again, Michael Schumacher finished second, finishing behind by 8.973 hundredths of a second. But once again, another incredible podium finish there for the Briton of Mark Blundell in his Marlboro McLaren Mercedes, finishing behind by 15 seconds, 630 hundredths of a second. And then unbelievably, for the first time in the championship so far, David Coulthard has not finished on the podium for the first time in this year's Reimagined 1995 Formula 1 World Championship, by finishing in 4th place and finishing behind by 17.999 hundredths of a second, literally almost just under in the narrowest of time margins, just before it reached 18 seconds. But even though it was a remarkable drive, as we saw in the highlights of the race, and we initially thought he could have actually had his eye on the podium. We thought he could have actually possibly had the chance to win this afternoon. But an unfortunate, of course, lacking performance, of course, from his car meant that Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine, even though that he did finish in 5th, he does get his first points of the championship, and all important to, of course, the total Jordan Grand Prix Peugeot team, of course, in the Constructors' Championship, but we'll get to very, very shortly. And he finished behind by 43 seconds, 0.879 hundredths of a second. And unbelievably, Jean-Christophe Bourniol once again finishes off the top 6 and getting the last Drivers' Championship point. And even though he was behind by a lap, he still managed to hold on for that point. Even though that I know that towards the end of the race, he also was involved in quite a close encounter with Michael Schumacher, along with Gerhard Berger and also his German teammate of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who sadly didn't make it into the top 10 towards the end of the race. 7th is Yukio Katayama, and he finished behind by 1 lap, and then 2 laps behind in 8th place once again is a fellow Japanese driver Taki Inoue, and as well as that, also we've got a 3rd Japanese driver in the return of Aguri Suzuki in his Leijie Mugen Honda, finishing behind by 3 laps, and rounding off the top 10 in his final potential, of course, race in Formula 1 is the Italian Pierluigi Martini in his Minardi Ford, as he finished in 10th place and behind once again by 3 laps. And unbelievably, even though he finished in 4th place, David Coulthard also managed to set the fastest lap overall of the race with a time of 1 minute 51 seconds, 0.365 hundredths of a second. So there you go, everybody. Once again, another race is concluded on this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, and we have now reached the end of the single, of course, digits of rounds of this year's 1995 reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship. And with that being said, of course, now since that is now done for, of course, for this series, let's now get straight on to updating the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship point tables at the moment, as we have, of course, officially started with the second half of this year's, once again, reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship season. And even though he only managed to score 4th place and only with just 3 points, David Coulthard still manages to hold out a lead at the moment, and he is unbelievably only just now, of course, especially with that all-important 2nd place for Michael Schumacher in the race from yesterday, made all the difference. He has managed to close the gap now down to around about, I think it is 6 points or 7 points to my knowledge, since it is, of course, they're both finishing off with an odd number, of course, in the current points table at the moment. And even though he didn't finish in the points, of course, Michael Schumacher's British teammate Johnny Herbert still holds on to 3rd place at the moment with 27 points, and he's now only just 1 point, of course, ahead of Mark Blundell after that impressive, once again, another podium for the McLaren Mercedes team, and he's managed to close the gap now just down to 1 point, as he is just behind with 26. And then John Alesi, unbelievably, because of his first victory ever in Formula 1 history, and not just in his career, but of this particular season, he has now moved all the way back into the top 6, and he is currently just 4 points behind, or sorry, my mistake, 5 points there from, of course, catching up with Mark Blundell. And even though he didn't finish in the points, 6 is Rubens Barrichello with 18 points, 2 points ahead of Damon Hill, who also once again failed to make the points in this from yesterday afternoon's German Grand Prix with 16 points. Gerhard Berger still remains in 8th place with 12 points, and the additional 1 point there for the Frenchman Jean-Christophe Bourgnon in his Red Bull, of course, Sauber Ford car. He still manages to eke out a little gap between his fellow, of course, teammate for the Red Bull, of course, Sauber Ford team, and that being of Carl Wendlinger, who is still, of course, remaining on 5 points at the moment, even though he has been absent for the last, I think it is 4 or 5 races. But we do know that he is doing, of course, well recovering-wise, and we hope to see him towards the end of course, into the latter half of this reimagined championship, as we mentioned at the top of the program. And like I said already, even though that he, of course, got his first point in the championship, he is currently tied with Taki Inoue at the moment, that being Eddie Irvine, currently in 13th place out of the top 10. And of course, once again, we will not bother with the other drivers outside the top 10 since there is not much happening there. So, but with that now, once again, covering the drivers, let's have a quick look at, once again, the Constructors' Championship table next. And once again, another all-important points finish there for, once again, for Benetton Renault. And once again, they are still continuing their lead, but it's now closed down to only 6 points ahead of Williams, who are in second, as they currently have 51 points to Benetton's 57. McLaren Mercedes still have got a 3-point lead ahead over, of course, Ferrari, that have had their massive boost points-wise as they stay in 4th place at the moment. And still, of course, 13 points behind is Jordan Peugeot, who still remain, once again, of course, in 5th place with, but they now move up to 20 points. And we did actually make a mistake in the last round, actually, before the start of the race earlier on in this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. The points table for Sauber has said 10 initially before the start of the race, but from earlier on in the programme, and we managed to correct it to that it actually being 12 points. But now, because of that additional point that once again Jean-Christophe Bourgnon managed to get in the race from yesterday, they have now moved up to 13 points now, and still remain at the moment in 6th in the Drivers' Championship. And once again, in 7th, 8th and 9th are Tyrrell Yamaha, still with 4 points, Ligue Mugen Honda with 3 points, and still in the bottom, in 9th place, are Footwear Kart, still with only 2 points. After once again, the 9th round of this Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship, and more specifically in the Constructors' Championship table fight at the moment. Well, there you go, everybody. I know that this was totally unexpected for us to move on and do this, of course, at a slightly different time to what we were planned. But it was a situation that we sadly couldn't, of course, manage to maintain from. And we can only thoroughly apologise. I know this is the first time that ever in the series we've actually had to rely on going on to an additional day to just bring, of course, the coverage of the race to you from yesterday. But as we wrap up here now, of course, it's a good job that with after this particular race, we have now have only, because of this delay, we unbelievably, at the time of recording this, we are going to be moving swiftly on to unbelievably now, as we head to double figures next time out on the next edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, as we will stay in Europe, but we will move into the more central part of course, the continent itself, as we head to the, of course, beautiful and historic city of Budapest in Hungary, as we have the 1995 Hungarian Grand Prix, and of course the sponsor of Marlboro, of course, the cigarette company, sponsoring them there. And we do know that this particular circuit is just like with Monaco, as we had earlier on in the series, it is unbelievably now been named as the most tightest circuit out of all of them on the 1995 Grand Prix calendar. And we do know that after the long winding straights, of course, of Hockenheim here in, from Germany, from the last round, as we move to a very technical and tight and twisty circuit, that being the Hungaroring, once again in Hungary and Budapest. This is it's definitely going to be more of a challenge, because there's also 77 laps, 1 lap short of the lap race distance that we had at the Monaco Grand Prix at Monte Carlo. And we do know that, interestingly enough, we're actually going to be this time following the Williams driver of Damon Hill next time out on Grand Prix Formula 1, because as we can also just remind you, as we've obviously been and done with of course this the edition of Grand Prix Formula 1 and covering the 1995 German Grand Prix, we do know that in real life that Michael Schumacher actually won the race in front of his home crowd, which was quite a remarkable achievement, being the first German driver to win their home race in the whole history of the sport. And it was also quite an eventful race as well, because a few drivers retired straight from the beginning. There was an oil leak from one of the cars at the front, and also Damon Hill found an oil patch and spun out at the first corner. And David Coulthard followed in second in his Williams Renault, while Gerhard Berger, in once again real life, finished in third for Ferrari. And it was great to see that we saw that amazingly, for the first time ever, the German fans actually, some invaded the track also as well at the time, because it meant so much to most of the German fans that were watching, of course, Michael Schumacher's impressive, of course, driving style at that particular race from over 30 years ago of this year, and in the series that we are, of course, basing our, of course, World Motorsport Series of Grand Prix Formula 1 on as of initially. But it also did say here that Of course, initially it does say here that he suffered from a drive shaft failure initially there, Damon Hill. But I think it was initially he spun on, as I said, an oil patch. And initially in real life, Michael Schumacher would have been his 5th victory of the year in this particular season, and he extended his lead over Damon Hill in the Drivers' Championship to 21 points. Well, it's obviously very different, of course, on this series, but as you know, it's all been down to, once again, the AI and how they've been driving. But as we did say earlier on, that there has been a few more driver changes, and we already mentioned that at the top of the programme, and we'll be seeing, of course, Pedro Lamy take over from Pierluigi Martini next time out at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and also the return of Aguri Suzuki. We do know that he's going to be replaced once again by Martin Brundle at the Ligier Music Honda team next time out, also at Hungary. And of course, as well as that, we're also to look forward to in a few days' time, there's other exciting sport to look forward to here on Jackpot Button Lewis Sport Productions, as of course in a few days' time it is the start of a brand new season in the world of English football. And of course we will be live from Anfield as the current, of course, Premier League champions of Liverpool take on the AFC team of Bournemouth from Anfield, and then we'll be kicking off the first match day of a brand new Premier League season. And you can join Kelly Cates, who will be live there from Anfield, who will be doing an exclusive live edition of Match of the Day Live. And of course the coverage starts from this Friday on the 15th of once again to clarify, of August, and starting coverage from 7 o'clock, and then kick off from 8 o'clock. And as well as that, there is loads more exciting Premier League games that are going to be happening from, of course, later on into the weekend, not to mention also Crystal Palace taking on, of course, Chelsea, who unbelievably, to Crystal Palace, they have managed unbelievably to win 2 pieces of silverware already from last season, amazingly beating, of course, Man City in last year's, of course, of this year's final of the FA Cup, and they also amazingly managed to beat Liverpool, who once again won the Premier League title this time last year. And it's amazing to see that, of course, with that to look forward to. Also, as well, we've got loads more exciting other sport and programming also here on Jackpot Button Lewis Sport Productions. And we are certainly looking forward, as we've unbelievably now already about halfway through the year of 2025, but once again the year of 1995 depicted here in this series. We would also like to give a big shout out also to Joe Hannard, also of Captain Goodspeed on YouTube. And for any of you that do not know already, he has also started a very exciting, of course, Ultimate Career mode, and that's him covering driving as unbelievably, if he were to be a driver all those years ago, from 30 years ago of 1995, him replacing Jean-Christophe Bourgnon in the Red Bull Sauber Ford team. And he is currently on the race at the sorry, not the Brazilian, my apologies, at the Spanish Grand Prix at Catalunya in Barcelona, but we've already covered that. But if any of you are interested to give that a watch, we will of course be promoting and you can give of course the start of his series a watch by watching of course a video link that will take you to the opening of his brand new series in the comment box just below. And as well as that, we've also just found out some quite sad news also from earlier on as of this week in the world of this, of course, particular series of Grand Prix Formula 1 in the 1995 reimagining of this year's 1995 Formula 1 World Championship. And we can also quickly sadly to also announce that from just a day after, it was after the I think it was the British Grand Prix from back on the 13th of July of 1995, we also heard the very sad news that the legendary Argentine, of course, world champion driver, that being Juan Miguel Fangio, nicknamed also as the El Chucho and El Maestro. He was responsible for winning 5 Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship titles, and at the time of his retirement he has also held the record for the most amount of wins of 24 and 29 pole positions, 23 fastest laps, and also 35 podium finishes among others. And he's also, of course, been a huge involvement in the world of Formula 1, not to mention that he also went on to, after retiring from motorsport, many years later, he also has managed to see the likes of, once again, the late, of course, Ayrton Senna, and also as well, we do know that he's also mingled with the other great legendary drivers of Nelson Piquet and the late James Hunt, and also Jackie Stewart, Denny Hulme, and also Jack Brabham, and the Chucho, which of course that is once again Manuel Fangio's nickname there. And he was also inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in 1990, and then he returned to the spotlight just last year when he publicly opposed a new province of Buenos Aires law denying driving licenses to those over 80 years old, which including his age. And we also did just hear from he also deeply mourned the death of Ayrton Senna from last year, as we mentioned just then, and he did say that I have lost my heir and successor, and showing his regret for the death of the young Brazilian driver. And he did take part in the funeral of Senna and also the subsequent burial which followed shortly after from last year, which was also held with honours worthy of a state funeral due to the driver's great popularity at the Morumbi Cemetery. But and also we do know that just from of course from last month in like I said the month of May, and then July, on the 14th, we heard that sadly he suffered from respiratory failure, and also he was diagnosed with bronchopneumonia, and a day later he had a respiratory crisis, and his diagnosis worsened on the 16th of July, and he suffered a decompensation in the state of his health until he had remained stable. And we actually just found out, actually we did get the date wrong there. It was actually the 17th, as of recently, in recent times on this series in the year of 1995. We would like to pay our respects to the recently passed and once again legendary Juan Miguel Fangio, who sadly once again has passed away at the year of 84 years old. And once again, who has now, once again, we sadly have lost to a case of bronchopneumonia. And from everyone on Grand Prix Formula 1, as of course, as legendary drivers go, this is another unbelievable and painful loss to the motorsport world. And we can only, of course, send our utmost condolences to the Fangio family and to fellow, of course, relatives of him at the turn of his passing. Rest well, Juan Miguel. We're going to miss you, and for a very, very long time. Well, I know that it's a bit unexpected to end this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1 on a low note, but with that being said, we would just like to say once again a huge thank you for your patience regarding this upload of Grand Prix Formula 1. We do know that in a few days' time, that and after editing this all together, we will be bringing you, of course, from later on as of recording this, the next edition of Grand Prix Formula 1 with the 10th round round of the Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 Marlboro Hungarian Grand Prix from the Hungaroring in Budapest. And the championship, as I've said before, it is still at the moment, even though it is a first race victory for John Alesi and for the Ferrari team in his career and in history for the team after a very long time away, of course, and actually to see a V12 powered engine car, it might possibly be the last time that we actually see, of course, a car of that power output possibly win another Grand Prix race in the world of Formula 1. But David Coulthard still is leading, but the gap is narrowly closing up with Michael Schumacher and for Benetton, and we do know that unbelievably, as I said already, if we see that if Damon Hill can have a better race than he did just from yesterday, he can be still right back in it, because he once again in 7th place with 16 points. He will be right back at it, and even if Mark Blundell doesn't score anything, he will be level on points, and he might overtake, of course, his 4th place in the Drivers' Championship. That is, of course, if he can win in just a few days' time. Well, with that being said, as I've said already, once again, we thoroughly apologise for the delay on this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, and we'll be going straight on to the next edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, that being with the 1995 Marlboro Hungarian Grand Prix from the Hungaroring in the next few days here on, of course, Jackpot, Button Lewis Sport Productions. And with that being said, thanks very much for watching, and if you have, once again, of course, enjoyed this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, don't forget to give it a like, comment down below on your thoughts on the race, and as always, don't forget to subscribe for the next edition of Grand Prix Formula 1, which once again will be up in just a few days' time here on YouTube. But once again, from myself, Jack Wright, and from everyone from the, once again, Grand Prix, of course, Formula 1 studio, for once again, Jackpot, Button Lewis Sports Productions, we'll see you in a few days' time for once again the 10th round as we continue the 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 Hungarian Grand Prix from the Hungaroring in Budapest. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this race here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions, let me know on what you thought of the race by giving a like on this video and subscribing so you never miss out on future races with more exciting classic retro Grand Prix racing action. And also, once again, let us know on your thoughts on the video by commenting down below in the, of course, comment box. And we look forward to seeing you for some more exciting, more future Grand Prix racing action, all here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions, here on YouTube.